Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Buck, will you please
Wonder
roll
John?
call?
Here.
Hybor?
Here.
Buck? Gardine? Here. Palmer? Here. DeHaan?
Here.
Klein?
Here. As a courtesy to the members of the audience and the Board of Education, please silence your cell phones. The public will be able to speak during public comment if signed up. Are there any more public comment forms? Opportunity? All right, moving on. Can I get an approval for the agenda or motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? All right, moving on to reports agenda. Let's start with Brent.
Well, I was out of town, so I wasn't at the homecoming events, but I've heard and seen pictures that it was quite an evening. My wife couldn't believe how packed it was with the people. So I don't know who organized it, but whoever organized
Laura
it
Van Hecken.
did a great job to have everything that was going on there. And then to have the alumni band was pretty cool then too, my wife said. And then looking forward to Victory Day this Saturday. So anybody that has time, 10:30 to 11:30 Saturday morning to come out to the football field, it's a great event. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Amy?
Just from the Parks and Recs, we are working on ARPA funds from the state, and that's a nice hefty sum. So our parks are really going to benefit quite a bit from that. And then I would just say it's felt like a really long time since we've had a board meeting. So I would like to thank our administration for the 4 of us who have kids in the school district, that it's really great to be able to go to those events and those open houses and every single thing that we do with our kids. So yeah, it's nice.
Thank you. Bob?
Nothing.
Thank you. Barb?
September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Thought I would educate you a little bit on the data from the county. As my job as the co-chair of the Suicide Prevention Coalition, we receive these numbers from the medical examiner. As of August 15th, there have been 60 suicides in Kent County. 60% of them are male, and 86% of them are Caucasian. So our white males are at very high risk in Kent County for suicide. The largest percentage of suicide means in males is by gun, and in women it is tied between hanging and drug overdoses. So more lethal are men using guns. So what do we do about that? There's a lot of ideas the Suicide Prevention Coalition thinks about, but one of them is be prepared and know what you're doing. So like know the Be Nice action plan, for example. Notice when someone is having a hard day or something might be going on. Invite yourself to say, hey, I noticed something's wrong. What's going down? Anything I can do? And then challenge yourself in the stigma to seek out help. And empower yourself that you've saved a life. Because I really believe that knowing what to do in a situation like that, if you think someone is thinking of harming themselves, the best thing to do is to ask them and not to be afraid to ask them. Another thing is there's a training called QPR, and the health department is offering 3 free sessions. They're an hour and a half each, but I have a flyer, Raji, you'd like to pass that on. It's called QPR, and it's question, persuade, refer. A very nice way too of kind of knowing the steps to take if you suspect someone may be suicidal. And then lastly is promote the new line, the 988 number, which is for mental health crisis and also suicide. And it's not just for those in that situation, but loved ones, friends, anyone that is maybe in a situation or is getting in a situation where they need to talk with someone who knows what to do. And that again is 988. It's answered by our own medical or community mental health network 180 trained staff who will get help for you. So thank you.
Thank you for all that informative ideas. Christy?
Just want to thank a lot of community members that came out to donate the night of homecoming. I was really blown away by a lot of the food and Steenstra's. Just what a great supporter of our public schools. And in addition, I had the opportunity to meet some of the trails folks, and I just want to comment that I'm really excited that we're part of this and that we are utilizing that program throughout our school district.
Can you tell us more about that?
What's trails?
I'll tell, Trails is a SEL program. Actually, it's a tier 2 in the multi-tiered systems of approach. In addition, they're creating and developing a tier 3 model too. And then in addition, they also provide lessons to our SEL, social emotional learning, where it's vital and important to be working with our kids when it comes to having those self-awareness and self-esteem and helping each other. So it's not just for just a student by themselves, it's about a whole environment and a culture. So it's a great program, and it's been 5 years and was created at U of M and then piloted in Detroit Public Schools. And from there, they've been just doing good work.
Good job. Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, just, gosh, a lot of different things going on. Band is going full force right now. Right? I had the band community performance here a couple weekends ago, which was great to see. As their program starts to come together and continues to develop. I think they had their first competition this weekend down in Otsego. Been to a lot of tennis matches, which is, gosh, they're almost wrapping up or coming to the end of the year already, believe it or not. It's only a month into school and they're already coming to the end of the year. Lots of football games too, and great to see everything going full steam. And wanted just to take a second and just to thank all the coaches that we have across all the different sports. It's really hard to find people. If anyone is involved in any organizations, it's hard to find people to volunteer to do things, let alone put yourself out there and be a coach where you're going to be open to criticism and backlash and everything else. So so I really want to say thank you to that. And you're going to think I'm sappy, but I'm going to say it anyway. Friday, I got a little choked up as I was sitting in the stands just listening, because it's cool for me, having been a member of this community for 40-some years now, to hear the names of kids that I played sports with their parents, right? I played sports with their dads, and I know how much and how important those sports were to those guys. And now to see them and their kids enjoy the sport just as much, and let me throw another kudos out there to Brent's son, Luke. It's really cool to see him be able to take his sport and then live his dream to be able to coach and give back as well. Because that's such a cool thing to see, especially in a community, especially as our community continues to grow and get larger. You don't necessarily see that, right? So it's just been really cool to see, like I said, hear the names of folks that I played with and had their kids really contributing. So it was fun. It was really cool on Friday. So thank you to him and you, obviously, for contribute, obviously, to the schools and so forth. So it was just fun to see here this past weekend. That's all I got.
40 what? You said 40 something?
47 years. Thank you for pointing that out, Barb. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yes.
Very good. Well, for me, a lot of it's echoing of what you've all said. The homecoming was phenomenal, and big round gratitude and thanks to Laura Van Hecken and all of the students at the high school who were part of the student council who put on that day. It was so enjoyable to walk out through the community and see joy in people's faces and community coming together, and having a large open event that we haven't been able to have for a long time, and just seeing people come together and share in the spirit that our community is and the unity and the grit that we have. A special thanks to all the people who volunteered for the dunk tank, because I went to sign up. I told them all there, thank you for doing that before I signed up, because I really appreciate that.
Did Roger get dunked?
Oh, yeah, he got dunked. And for being good sports and letting youngsters who missed the target come up and dunk them anyways. Thank you for providing that moment of joy for them. That was exciting. I especially had fun watching Mr. Martini, because he always puts on a show for the kids, and it was a good time to watch. I also want to give kudos to Jason and Scott for our recognition through the MTSS process. That was great to see and hear. I know you guys are doing a lot of work, and it's really valuable work. It's deeper than just the gut feeling that things are on track or the gut feeling when things are off track. It's the data and the proof, the evidence, and the effort towards getting students where they need to be and meeting their needs at the different levels they're at. So thank you so much for doing that, and also doing it at a level where we get recognized from it, because we're doing it right. So thank you. I also want to call out one more time. I know I said it a few weeks ago, but I got to say it again. John, you are an HR hiring machine. Our district is, I know we still have some spaces, maybe some para spaces to fill, but in terms of teaching staff, We've just done a phenomenal job filling those roles, and a lot of that comes to the work that's been done over the last year or two to prepare for this moment and recognize the trends that are going on and make sure that we have a solid process for hiring. We are one of the best districts to work at, both in spirit, in curriculum, in community, and in contract. And so that's a lot of work, and we appreciate that. I know other districts are looking here. So just want to call that out again. We have a whole bunch of new hires tonight as well. It was great to see Mrs. Cool directing the band and then seeing the alumni band. I have many children who've gone through the band program, one that's in right now. It's a great program. If you haven't seen it, come visit or volunteer on October 8th. Is our band festival 9th that weekend?
Yes.
They'll need a ton of volunteers. Their program this year is about the Giving Tree, which I think is a very good theme and always a great book for all of us to read. Sheldon Silverstein was one of my favorites as a child and still to this day. I can quote a lot of the poems that he had, and my favorite still today is "I cannot go to school today," said little Peggy MK. Don't tempt me, I'll read the whole thing to you right now from memory. I tried as a kid. Also, watching the students compete with the fight song was so much fun. So really, getting the youngsters involved and having our high schoolers come down and build that spirit and mentor them in community pride and learning the things. It's not just a song to sing or a fun activity. It has meaning to the words. So if you haven't checked out the words, read the words of the fight song and see what our kids are learning about and coming together and supporting the Bulldog spirit and pride. And also just a kudos to everyone. We're a good month into the year and things are going really well. And I've had some great meetings with teachers for my own kids already, been to some open houses, seen a lot of great things going, and it feels good. So thank you to everyone in this room and everyone who couldn't be here tonight for a great start to the school year. On to you, Roger.
Yeah, I echo a lot of the same things. Great kick, beginning to the school year. Friday night was just an exceptional community event. It was wonderful, and the weather was beautiful, and just great participation, and great to be a Bulldog with that. This is the report where I usually forego any other comment because we have our 21-22 financial audit report, and that typically happens during the superintendent's report. So I'm going to turn things over to Heather.
So first I would just like to give kudos downstairs to our business office because this isn't just a one-person show. It's a compilation of a lot of things that happen throughout the year, and they work hard to pull all the information that's happened over the past year and work with our auditors. So what I'd like to do is introduce Michael Everard from Yo and Yo, and he'll kind of tell you how it went this year.
Okay, hi everybody. As Heather said, I'm Mike Everard from Yo and Yo. So in front of you, you've got a packet of stuff. There's a couple binders. One's going to say financial statements on them. One's going to say single audit report. There's also a letter tucked in there with some required communications from us. But what we're going to go over today is this PowerPoint that's up on the screen. We've summarized all that 100+ pages down into about 15 or so, and it's a little nicer format to go over. So, oops. Just put the mouse wheel in. Sorry, a little technical difficulty.
I can do this.
Okay, perfect. So first thing I'd like to do is just talk about responsibilities, both of the district and of us as the CPA firm. So this first slide is actual wording right from your audit opinion, and it says that the district is responsible for preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with GAAP. So this is just pointing out that as the auditors, we do not come in and help make adjustments and do the books and clean things up. We have to be independent, so we're not really allowed to do much of that. So on the next slide, this talks about the auditor's responsibility, which is very simple. We have to follow professional standards, government auditing standards, generally accepted auditing standards, and plan our audit appropriately to issue our opinion. On the next slide, I just want to talk a little bit about what an audit is. Basically, it all starts with understanding your internal controls. So what we do is we take a look at your business office and we say, what's their skills, knowledge, and experience? Do we think there's any weaknesses there? Do we think everybody's really strong at what they do? So for example, if you had a brand new payroll clerk that had never done payroll before, we're most likely going to consider that to be kind of a higher risk area and spend a lot more time there than we would if you had somebody that's been doing payroll for, say, 25 years. So what we do is we kind of look for holes in processes and where things could go wrong. We pick certain transactions and we walk them through from start to finish. So you could take the disbursement cycle, for example, and we look and say, if I want to get a bill paid, what do I have to do? Who approves it? Who signs the checks? Who codes that in the system? And after we get a comfort level about your internal controls, then we do our risk assessment. We make certain areas high risk, certain areas low risk. So we do a combination of procedures. Substantive procedures would be like looking at statements or confirmations, receipts, real hard evidence. Analytical procedures would be more of comparisons, relationships, and ratios. We are required to do some testing of the pension and OPEB plans. OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, fancy term for healthcare. So the MIPSRS plan is audited at the state level, and our responsibility as the CPA firm at the district level is to audit the inputs that go into that plan. Every year we incorporate an element of unpredictability into our audits, so something different and new that the business office is not expecting to keep them on their kind of on their toes. Because you are a governmental unit, we have to do the audit in accordance with government auditing standards. So it's extra requirements than if you were like a nonprofit, for example, that didn't receive significant government funding. So a lot of the spending is done with tax dollars, so there's higher scrutiny placed on those. We have to watch for waste and abuse, for example. We do some significant grant compliance testing. So because Grandville receives more than $750,000 of federal funding, you have to get what's called a single audit, and it's testing compliance with federal grant regulations. And then toward the end, we help prepare your financial statements. There's a number of reporting that's due. There's a data collection form that gets filed with the federal government. That's kind of like a summary of the audit. And then we do all your submissions for you, both to Michigan Department of Ed, your local ISD, and the federal government. And then there's also some bond audits that are being done as well, because there's been significant bond passages in the district over the last few years. So every year we're kind of auditing those projects as we go along to complete that reporting at the end. So we'll get into the audit results. This is the first slide here, which says you received an unmodified opinion. That means you got a clean opinion, which means that all the financial statements, all the numbers that are in them, we assert that those are materially accurate. On the next slide, so we do an internal control evaluation like I spoke about a few slides ago. It's important to note that the opinion is on your numbers. You don't get an opinion on internal controls. That's not what an audit is designed to do. However, we do have to evaluate those controls and as part of designing our procedures. So if we come across something that we feel is deficient, we have to report that to you. We had no material weaknesses to report and no significant deficiencies to report either. The single audit, as I just mentioned, is compliance with federal guidelines over your federal grants. You are a low-risk auditee because you've had several years of demonstrating high-quality audits with no serious findings, so you're able to be low risk. The major programs mean what grants did we focus the single audit on. This year, those grants were the Special Education Cluster and then the Education Stabilization Funds, which is a lot of the new COVID-type funding that all the school districts are getting right now. So both of those had unmodified opinions, which means clean opinions, and we had no material weaknesses or material non-compliance to note there either. On the next slide is some more things we're required to communicate. We had no disagreements with management. We had no difficulties in performing the audit. An example would be documentation that went missing, some questions we had that nobody knew the answers to, Nothing was reconciled, stuff like that. So nothing like that at all. Audit went very, very well. We had no uncorrected misstatements and no material audit adjustments as well. So, audit results were very good. So on the next slide, we'll start going over the numbers. So we've got a column here for each of your major funds. We've got the general fund in the first column, followed by the 2020 and 2022 building and site funds in the second column, and then your debt service funds. That fourth column there of non-major funds, that's a combination of the food service fund, the student school activities fund, the sinking fund, and then there's the 2019 building and site fund in there. So you can see the performance for the general fund this year was an increase in fund balance of about $800,000. So you ended the year at about $8 million flat in the general fund. The building and site fund, there was significant spending of the 2020 bonds in there, but that was also combined with the new bond issuance of about $33 million for the 2022 bonds. So the net change was about a positive $9 million. On the next slide, we've got a budget to actual comparison for the general fund. So the first column is your original budget, which was approved back in June of 21, the final budget that was approved in June of 22, and then where you actually came in at. So you can see the difference column there. Revenues were within 0.16% of the budget. Expenditures were in 0.53% of the budget. So extremely accurate budgeting this year on a $72 million budget.
It's amazing.
On the next slide, we've got kind of a series of graphs for you just for informational purposes. This one shows you all your general fund revenue and where it comes from. So 63% of all your revenue comes from state aid. The next largest piece would be local revenue of 21%. That's a combination of a lot of things, but the biggest piece there would be property taxes. And then federal revenue, although up this year, was still only 8% of the total. On the next slide, this shows in the general fund, where do you spend all your money at? So you can see the blue and the orange slice, that makes up salaries and benefits. That orange slice is getting bigger and bigger every year, so it's almost as big as the salaries to begin with. So 81% of all expenditures are for payroll and benefits. On the next slide, we've got a 10-year enrollment trend analysis going back to 2013, just showing the student count in the district. Usually when I show this graph at a lot of other districts, it's a little more dramatic. This is one of the most stable ones I've seen. So very little change over the past 10 years in your student count. Next slide shows your general fund balance and what's been happening over time. So you see like a moderate increase this year. That's mainly due to the influx of the COVID grants that all the districts are experiencing. So this is pretty normal what we've been seeing this year. On the next slide, we have this is kind of a benchmark that a lot of districts like to use to measure the health of the general fund. So if you take your fund balance and divide it by expenditures, you get a percentage. You were at about 11.2% this year. Because you're a bigger district, you can't really compare yourself to smaller districts. It just doesn't work like that. So I thought about, there's actually a document that MDE publishes that compares you to districts of like size. I thought about looking at that before I came here, but I forgot to do it. So I can't tell you if that's, I think it's probably pretty comparable, but I can get you that information after this. This is always one of my favorite slides to present. This shows the MIPSers, or your retirement rate history, going back to 2009. And I shouldn't say yours, but I should say every district in Michigan's retirement rate. So you can see back in 2009, the retirement rate was at about 16.5%. For this year, your rate was about 43%, and next year it will be at about almost 45%. So The green line is basically the unsubsidized rate, and then the blue line is the total rate. So that includes the subsidy that you get from the state of Michigan and your state aid to help pay that total rate, which started in about 2014. So that's why the blue line doesn't go all the way back to 2009. And then on the next slide, just want to mention a couple things. Won't get too big into it, but there was one very significant accounting pronouncement that was required to be adopted this year, and then we have one very significant one for next year. So new accounting pronouncements change how we do accounting, changes the rules. So this year it was GASB 87. You've probably heard some information about this, but basically, there used to be certain criteria that if you leased certain items, if it met certain criteria, that it didn't have to go on your books, it was a disclosure only. That criteria is kind of out the window, and for the most part, most of your leasing arrangements are required to go on your books now. There are certain exceptions that you can get out of doing that, but this was a standard that all districts had to adopt this year. So we did put some leases on the books this year. However, it did not have an effect to your bottom line because the asset that you recognize was the same as the liability that you recognize, so it did not have a net income effect. For next year, just a quick heads up, there will be GASB 96. It's very similar to leases, same idea, except it is for subscription-based IT arrangements. So the statement defines that as a contract that conveys control of the right to use a vendor's IT software alone or in combination with tangible capital assets. So basically for next year, you'll have to do the same thing you did for leases, except over those IT arrangements, various software that you use throughout the district. And then on the next slide, I guess that was all I had. So I'd like to say thank you very much to the board. Again, the audit went very well. Nothing but positive things to say. And thank you very much to Roger and to Heather and Kayla and all the staff in the business office that helped us out with an audit. I know audits are disruptive to your day-to-day, so we try to make it as easy as possible on everybody. And I think we worked really well together and that everything went great. So, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, I gave everybody 20 seconds. So in your letter, Michael, there is a section under additional information, and then you also talk about it in the GASB for 2020, for next year, 2023, for the cybersecurity. Have we ever done a cybersecurity audit? I don't recall if we've ever done that.
We've done a technology audit.
We've done a technology audit, and also through our liability insurance, we've completed a bunch of different forms, if you will, to make sure that we are able to obtain the highest level of coverage that you can get. So we are rolling out multi-factor authentication right now throughout the district, and that is the last piece that we had to roll out and able to hit that highest threshold of eligibility for, should we incur a cyber attack, we would have coverage up to $1 million.
That's great.
I mean,
Should we consider doing this at some future date, hopefully recent, just because of what's going on in the cyber world, ransomware, everything else, and the fact that we have thousands and thousands of people. Hey, Walt.
yeah,
Step up.
That's what I was gonna say.
You know, touching our systems every day, and I know you do a great job, but wouldn't it be nice to understand if we have a hole?
Yes, definitely. It is something that we're looking into. We did actually complete a cybersecurity audit. Admittedly, it was back during the Tim Perkey era, so I don't have a specific.
Tim.
Yeah. So we did have done one in the past, but as Heather mentioned, the questionnaire that her and I do on an annual basis for our cyber insurance renewal does cover a lot of things like making sure a lot of our systems are not exposed publicly to the internet, systems that are exposed publicly to the internet have the highest level of security. As Heather mentioned, we're rolling out two-factor on any system that's exposed publicly to the internet. So there's a number of requirements that we are keeping up on. But yes, it would be something that we'll look into in the future.
It's just,
Yes, we do regular penetration testing on our systems as well to make
and
sure
I would
that,
assume that that is the case, just because personal data is so sensitive, and then you bring in the extra special child and the data we have on them, wouldn't it, I mean, doesn't it make you sleep better at night if we were to even consider doing something like that?
yeah, and that is something that myself and obviously other tech directors in Kent County, we get together and we discuss, best practices and all of that kind of thing. Because school districts, not only in Michigan, but you may have heard about the Los Angeles school district that was recently attacked with a ransomware attack. So there's definitely things that we're keeping up on, with cooperation with other districts in Kent County to make sure we're secure that way.
Okay, all right, just, we're doing an audit.
And Bob, we, as superintendents, we've had a lot of discussion on the same thing and the importance in trying to work together. We think we could have some power in doing some things together and saving costs at the same time.
Good,
So, yeah.
good. And why not, right? There's great partnerships within Kent and Ottawa County in particular, so, continue to share the love. So the other thing I guess I want to say, besides nice job Heather and Kayla, is since I've been on the board, this chart doesn't change much, right? Sometimes when you look at benefits and pay, it's 81%, sometimes it's 82%, but it usually doesn't change much after that. So it's kind of nice to see how with everything else that you have to control, that you keep everything in check. So that's how I see that as a barometer. So again, nice job. And thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I have a comment. I'd just like to say we have a phenomenal business office, and these two ladies do such an outstanding job, and I'm just very blessed to work with them. Also would like to thank Yo and Yo. They always do a very thorough job, and yet do it in a way where it's easy for anyone to understand what we're looking at and what they do and what the results are. So again, we appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that and also let you know Heather shows us the fund balance comparison to other districts all the time. So we know we're good, we know we're doing well, but we'd love to still see whatever you can come up with as well. So thank you so much for being here and giving the very thorough and concise explanation of all your hard work. Thank you to Heather and Caitlin as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we do not have any old business, so we're going to move to consent action agenda. Can I get a motion to approve that agenda?
Support.
All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? All right, moving on to regular action items. Give me a moment. I did not bring my readers. I'm gonna hold it close. Oh, thank you.
2.0?
Really, I'm going to need it. Teamwork.
2.0.
2.0, perfect. It is recommended that the Board of Education approves the purchase of services from Life EMS Ambulance of Grand Rapids for co-teaching the Emergency Medical Technician course for the 2022-2023 school year at a cost of $30,198.78.
So moved. Support.
So as you know, this is one of the outstanding programs that we offer that's very unique because not too many people offer this, and we've had great results with it, and I've heard some great stories from kids who have experienced it, and we'll turn things over to Heather.
Yes, so this course is in its 16th year. Currently has 22 students enrolled this year, and then once they've completed the course, they'll be allowed to sit for the state board exam in order to become licensed. So again, like Roger said, only one of a handful of districts in the state that offers this type of program. I did include a table for you to see the historical data in terms of course cost, et cetera. And any type of curriculum questions, I would have to turn over to Scott.
I'm going to tell you, this is one of the
This is one of the electives we have that makes Grandville stand out. So the fact that we're still offering it and we get fair participation in this class is a testament to what we're doing in curriculum in the high school. So nice job, Rod. You get it. Adam's not here, so you get the accolades.
Yeah, it was fun to see some of the kids that graduated this past year with my daughter, their parents commenting that their kids were going to have a part-time job in college and be a paramedic because of this program, right? So again, first time I'm kind of experiencing that. So that was kind of cool to see. So it is, like you said, Bob said, real world experience and getting people the opportunity to start in their careers or down that career path that they're looking to do if they're looking to get into medicine. So it's really cool.
Any questions or comments? Again, echoing, great program, excited, love the longevity in it, and love that we're continuing to look for other areas, so I just want to encourage that. We're looking for areas to expand our career and technical education opportunities at our district. We have a lot of great opportunities through the KCTC as well, but we recently discussed some of those options, and I know our students really look forward to that, and for students who need to be hands-on, this is just an amazing opportunity, and I'm glad that we're continuing to look that direction. I know a lot of students look forward to leaving school with a tangible skill that they can apply immediately, either to start their career or launch a future career. So thank you again for doing all this. Did notice that the CPI went up a lot this year, no surprise, but so glad to be supporting them. All right, let's take a vote. Roll call, please, Christy.
Highborn,
Yes.
Buck, yes. Gardine,
Yes.
DeHaan,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Wonderjohn,
Yes.
Klein.
Yes, it is moved. Congratulations to the Life EMS program. Moving on to our banking relationship. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the expansion of banking services with Lake Michigan Credit Union, known as LMCU. The expansion includes using LMCU for general fund, food service fund, debt fund, sinking fund, and activity fund. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Yeah, so this is really my way of bringing, from a transparency standpoint, something that we would like to do. Back in January of 2022, the board at the organizational meeting approved the designation of the following depositories, Lake Michigan Credit Union being one of them. And over the course of probably the last 2 years, the last year in particular has been we've been very diligent with meeting with various institutions that could assist us in creating some efficiencies while providing great customer service and improving our interest earnings. So Lake Michigan is the one that rose to the top, and really just we had a little bit of a relationship with them prior to that, but for us, it's really huge to have a local presence with a relationship manager who's located within the Grandville, Grand Rapids area. There are times where we do run into issues, and if it's payroll, it's not good. So we need to make sure that we have somebody close who will answer our call right away, not have to go through a help desk system, that type of thing. So the customer service interactions that we've had with them have been very positive. They were able to mirror our current services at a lower cost while proposing the addition of a courier service, which will not only help our office, but it's going to help out the high school and the middle school too, because we'll be able to set up scheduled pickups for them as well, so they won't need to leave their office space either. So again, this doesn't require a formal bid because it's a service. However, we do follow the same due diligence process that we would with any other vendor, that we would look for 3 different quotes, et cetera, from others. So the other thing too is, so some of the other banks that we met with were West Michigan Community, PNC, and then those that are still listed up there as well. So we want to make sure too that we have a diverse banking relationship, which we are continuing to do.
So, sorry, the activity fund what is that for? Does that include like all the different organizations and so forth, or?
Yeah, so I think like he mentioned during the audit, it's a student activity fund. So that fund is really money in, money out. So it's fundraising or donations for different causes. So It's one of our smaller funds.
But not for the different organizations that Grandville has, like, say, the band boosters?
No, so all the booster groups, PTC groups, they have their own
They have their own.
EIN.
Okay.
They're separate from the district in
Okay.
that we don't manage their funds. They have their
Yeah.
own accounts, et cetera, so.
Okay.
And we'll help them when they need some assistance if they have questions, but we don't do the day-to-day.
Well, the courier service caught my attention because my wife is constantly going to the bank for the hand boosters. I was like, hey, that'd be nice. But unfortunately, no. Okay, fair enough.
I think it was a great choice. They're such a great credit union, and they used to be called the Grand Rapids Teachers Credit Union, my first bank account. But also, they're so supportive of school districts in general, so I think that's awesome.
Great organization. Any more questions or comments? All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? That carries. We are going to be moving to the report and discussion item. I want to pause for just one moment and invite anyone who came in late. If you'd like to sit down, you are welcome to come in. I just want to make sure you're comfortable because we have quite a bit more time. And also I'd request that you return to the gallery. Thank you. All right, moving to the report and discussion items, we are going to be talking about the library book system tonight.
Sure. Yes, you'll recall last time we had a little bit of discussion about our library book system and that we were looking at some different pieces of that. We have a new library supervisor, so it really creates a great opportunity, great time to have a new set of eyes on our systems that we have and talk about what's working great and really look at some things in regards to books. We've heard some things that people have had regarding concerns about some books and so on. So we, in all transparency, look at our systems and trying to make sure that we have a way to address some of the concerns and at the same time have a highly effective system for all students. So I'll turn things over to Scott. He's going to talk a little bit about where we're at with it.
Yeah, like Roger said, we're excited to have a new district library supervisor on board, Katie Lawrence. And in working with Katie and her expertise, she has recommended, and we're just sharing this out tonight, she's recommended that within the high school library that we separate collections into a teen collection and an adult collection. And within that system, we can be responsive to some of the suggestions that we've heard from people and restrict the adult section. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be sending something out to all high school parents for the opportunity to enter into that restriction or complete that and submit it. And then that section will be restricted for their student. This will be a physical change in our library, so it's going to take a little time, but we can start in the next couple of weeks. It is important to note that an adult collection of library books is a collection that's geared toward an adult audience and written and published for an adult audience. Now, there are lots of reasons why we would maintain and have some of those books. Those books can include James Patterson books, for example, that may be mysteries. Their characters are adult characters, so from a publishing world, they're categorized as adult books. Adult books are also, we have a number, so Katie and I have been working to pull, what does this look like? We have a number of home and auto repair books that are considered part of the adult section. One of the things that will be incorporated in this system as well is an easy opportunity for any parent who wishes their child not to have the ability to check out books from the adult section to easily say, you know what, there is a title in there that is appropriate for my child, and easily just send that one title and have some control and some parent choice over the books that their children check out. So that, again, is going to take some time to restructure our library, but in the next couple of weeks, we're going to get that information out to parents so they can submit that through Power School and get it back immediately. What questions might you have?
Is it going to take a lot of oversight to let kids in and out? Or I guess not sure how it would look, but is that like more staff needed or?
No, we don't think so.
Okay.
It will be part of the system, just in terms of categorized if a student attempts to check out a book.
it will.
So they
it will
can get
come out.
into this section? There's not like a door
No.
or anything like
No,
that?
it'll be like
Okay.
going into the public library.
Okay, there's
They
that.
have an adult fiction section, teen
Okay.
fiction section.
Okay.
It'll be like that.
Okay.
I just commend you and your team for, constantly working on it and trying to enhance it and enhance the system we have. So nice job.
Thanks.
Are you going to invest a similar process in the middle school and the elementary with regard to content parents may find questionable?
Can
Because I
you
believe
elaborate on that or
has
say
been
more
a
about
concern,
that?
Scott. It has been a concern, it's been brought up in board meetings.
We have systems already. If a parent does not want their kid checking out a specific kind of book, all they have to do is address that with the librarian and/or the teacher, principal.
For the kind of book, right?
Yes, they
Not
can just say,
necessarily on a title.
I don't want my child reading this book or that book, or books about this or
Okay.
whatever. Yes.
Good.
And that's in place.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, well, thank you again for your support and listening to the community concerns and making updates to the system as such. All right. Borrow these one more time.
Go right ahead.
We're moving to the public comment section of our board meeting, and just a few reminders as we get there. The Board of Education recognizes and values very much the public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on district matters. To that end, tonight, as we come forward, please remember you have 5 minutes to share information that you would like to express about district matters. Please keep it germane to district matters. And we also request that you consider the time and repetitive nature. It is in our bylaws that states participation in the school board. Please do not interrupt. Please do behave with decorum in here. Do not be disruptive of one another. General, just be kind to one another and make sure that you're directing your comments towards us, the board. That is whom you're speaking with tonight, and we will be listening to you. Okay? At 4 minutes, you will get a warning from Mr. Hybor here, who will let you know that you have 1 more minute to go. Also, as you are giving your public comment, please remember that you may not violate the rights of others under the law of defamation or invasion of privacy. You may be held legally responsible if you do. If you're unsure of what those legal ramifications may be for what you are about to say, we urge you to consult first with your legal advisor. All right, so that being said, we have a handful of folks. First up will be Sally Van Eck, followed by Julie Dahl.
Good evening. I am Sally Van Eck. I'm a 38-year resident here of Grandville. I raised my kids here, and I also taught for Grandville schools for 20-some years, and had some of the kids who are represented here on the board. I'm also a proud mother and mother-in-law of 3 staff members of Grandville schools, and I have some grandkids here, so I'm heavily invested into what's going on here in Grandville schools. I have a quick comment to make about what I witnessed Friday evening at our tailgater, which was a great event. And I was just really disappointed, I guess, that folks who are campaigning were violating some of the campaign rules and regulations that you as a board has set up. And I would just hope that it's addressed at some point soon. And that hopefully that some of the literature that was being distributed that was very disparaging and, in my opinion, very untrue would be discredited verbally. The other thing that I want to talk about are books. I was a science and math teacher, and so, literature was not my forte, but let me tell you, I had a classroom library that probably ranged around 2,000 books, many of which I purchased on my own because I know their power. And during my tenure as a teacher, I unfortunately had 3 former students who were in the middle school at the time. I was a 6th grade teacher primarily, who ended up taking their lives. I can't think of anything professionally that's more devastating than that. And each one of those students took their lives, of course, not known by their parents of their hopelessness, but they took their lives because they were different. And they felt different. And they did not feel accepted. They did not see their face or themselves reflected in their world. And so they felt very alone and isolated. It was just tremendously tragic for their families. I can't even imagine the pain and anger and anguish they gone through and probably are still living today. But I do know this. Books are powerful in that when kids can see themselves reflected in something in their life, whether it's a book or a show, or in this case, a lot of times it's social media, they don't feel so alone. They need to have this access. It's just a small tool in our toolbox as educators, just a small tool. But we don't know which tool is going to be effective. We don't know what's that one thing that's going to give them that one thread of hope to stay in this world and not to give up on it. I would just strongly encourage you, as you look at your policies for the control of books, that you will remember that students' lives really are on the line here. All students' lives. None of their parents, I'm sure, would stand here and say that a book pushed them to take their lives. And I wish at that time, because this was in the late 90s and the early 2000s when this occurred, that I would have had more books for them. Some of these kids were special needs kids. Other kids it was issues with their sexuality. And it just grieves me that there was not more that we could have done as educators, besides just loving them and giving them the space and time to be accepted and loved for who they are. Books can help with that. Thank you for your time.
Next up, next up, Julie Dahl, followed by Tessa Jansman.
Good evening. My name is Julie Dahl. My address is on file. Just a couple things to start. One, I want to acknowledge that the microphones are here. We appreciate that. We've been asking for that for a while, so thank you. Also, I was just sitting here just to be respectful of when we are recording or going live. I just didn't want to be right behind someone, so my apologies.
Understandable.
Now I understand.
No worries.
Stay in the gallery. Let's talk about the book issue first initially. I don't know if you guys hear yourselves, but we're talking about an adult section in a public school library. Are we good with that? Is that something that we think that's okay? If something needs to be qualified as an adult, does it have a place in a public school library? Should it not stay at just the public library, at a university library? They have access to these anywhere online, or maybe with the parents? Probably not just accessibility anywhere. I'm trying to understand why we are okay, the majority of the board, when I say we, with exposing children to hypersexualized material. Why are we okay with books depicting violent rape of minors and drug use? I understand that we want to be everything to everyone. I understand that we want to touch, even if it just touches one person's lives. But I don't understand why exactly. I've asked several people trying to, in this quest to understand, like, am I missing something? I don't want to be naive in this. What am I missing? I have two friends that have dealt with sexual abuse and trauma, very young, and I have another friend who is a psychologist. I've asked both of those friends, am I missing something? What is happening in these books? They said, we're going to take a look and let you know. One friend said, if I read this book unsupervised, this would have triggered me so bad I would have been put into a downward spiral. The other friend said, I had to put this book down. I could not finish it because it was bringing up all these memories and all this issue that I had to be done with that. Talked to my other friend. He said that, yes, of course, books like this absolutely have value, but when they're in a controlled environment. when he's in a session, when he is with the parents, or when they're guided through this. Just to have a free-for-all, just to have kids like this, it can trigger more than it's not helping people. We want them to identify with certain things, and that's understandable. But let's be cautious of hypersexualizing kids at a young age. At the last meeting, Amy, I think you had a really good point. You said, at first I read this book and I was like, whoa, what's happening? And then you went back and you said, okay, once I read it, it was a beautiful coming of age story, is what you said. And something hit me when you said that. It was the fact that that was just like that. It was a desensitization to sexuality. And that is something that's happening in our culture as a whole. There was a fine line, there was a bold line, right and wrong. That line gets a little skewed, then it gets a little blurred, and before you know it, there isn't a line anymore. And we are so quickly desensitized to all of this. The fact is, these books depict sexuality in minors, something that we don't need to have access to all the time for all these kids. If that's something a parent wants to have a discussion with, let them. If that's something a psychologist, a doctor, let them. This is a family matter. This is not something that needs to be just out there like that. I don't think that continually pushing this, we have to be everything to everyone, is necessarily a productive. We want to include everyone and make them feel included, but in doing so, that line is disappearing. I want to address Friday night as well, since it has been brought up already. I can agree with people or I can disagree with people. If I disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean I'm full of hate. We don't always have to agree on everything. All right? There was not any sort of spreading truth as well is not defamation. It might be very inconvenient for some, but it is not defamation. Thank you for your time.
Next up, Tessa Jansma, followed by Lynn Jansen.
Yes, thank you for the microphones. This is awesome. My name is Tessa Jansma. You have my address and all on file. Interesting, we start off with the talk of suicide and, you know, how prevalent it is with these children these days, yet we're assigning books to classes now. We're no longer just in the library. This book's assigned to your 10th graders in American literature somehow. Yes, I read this whole book too. See my little marks? Got every page that has something just... The suicide thoughts that this girl in this book has, she explains exactly how she cuts her wrist. She explains how she tries to hide it. She explains that she was raped. And then when she finally tells somebody, which I'm pretty sure is like the whole thing of the book, to speak, she tells somebody about it, and then within hours, she's popular. Now she's popular in high school because she was an outsider before. And now she's popular because she told everybody how she was raped. This is the trash that we're giving our students now. Your whole reason for accepting the pornography was that, okay, we're gonna get an adult section now. That's like, you know, that's wild. Like, that's wild. An adult section in a school, that's disgusting. But no, we're assigning these now to our students. And like, do you guys wanna be known as groomers? Because this is how you get known as groomers. Like, this is not good. This is not good at all. I'm still waiting to hear from this teacher. I won't say her name yet, but I'm still waiting to hear what kind of discussions she thinks this book is gonna have. Like, what are the kids gonna talk about? What if one of those kids in that class was raped? And now we got the whole class talking about it. How comfortable would you feel? It's a little ridiculous. Let's see. I'll move on. I won't dive too deep in. There's really no point to keep challenging books, at least for now, because you guys will just go along with whatever the committee says, so there's that. Your dress code at the high school never has been enforced. It probably never will be enforced, but I thought 2 girls didn't have any pants on today as I picked my 15-year-old son up. We got girls with spaghetti strap, V-neck, halter tops. There's no jackets that go over those. Like, they're walking into school just like that. Why do we even have a dress code? We can just look past that rule, but all the other ones. Let's see. Oh yeah, one more thing about the high school. Why did my son get asked his preferred pronouns in the beginning of each class this year? He had to put his paper in with his preferred pronouns. What are you doing? Like, what are we doing? Are we encouraging this? Like, this is just beyond disappointing where Grandville's going. So, and now we're going to have an adult section in our library because that fixed the problem. Like, are we checking IDs? Like, I don't understand how that fixes anything. Like, you're saying that you're begging for the porn to stay in the school. Why? Grandville was always a higher standard than all other schools. Like, I went to Grand Rapids Public. I remember giggling when I seen the word shit in a book. And now we have, in this book, this girl calls her mom a bitch. Like, just the disrespect is wild. And this is assigned? This is assigned to our kids? And this is just the first one that I've found. I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more. And I would love to maybe get a little more insight on how we remove books, because Lucky just kind of mysteriously got taken out, and you guys don't have any numbers or records of any or all the books that were weeded out. Those records are just gone or unavailable.
Time.
Thank you.
Next up, Lynn Jansen, followed by Brenda Bargenquast. All right, thank you, Lynn, for being here. Brenda Bargenquast, please, followed by Janine Jansma.
Brenda Bargenquast, my address is on file. This move here tonight to prevent checking out of books does not prevent kids from sitting and reading the book in the library. Bet you didn't think of that, huh? Book review process, milk and honey, by the numbers. 8 parents were asked to be on the committee that wanted the book pulled, but didn't have the courage to do it because they knew they'd be crucified by the left. The left that says words are violence when referring to those that disagree with them, but when they commit actual violence, it isn't. Double standard much? Can you say hypocrisy? So then they found 3 parents who are okay with what is, in essence, pornographic material in a public school library. And like clockwork, the parents that don't like those of us speaking up at the board meetings start calling us book burners. Well, the left also likes to revise history. We just want sexually explicit material away from minors. This shouldn't be controversial. You have to be 18 to buy a mature video game. You have to be 17 to see an R movie. If these books were movies, they wouldn't get past the school's freaking internet filters. So why is it okay in written form? Book burners wanted books to be destroyed so that no one could ever read them again. Parents can still buy their own kids this garbage on Amazon if they so choose. Just keep it away from everyone else's. To summarize, 7 people, 3 parents, and 4 faculty staff recommend that the book stay as is, no restrictions. The board then voted 4-2, 1 member was absent that night, to follow the recommendation. So now the other side is clamoring because some of the board members, I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2, didn't read the book and voted against the recommendation to keep it. Well, I have 2 things to say about that. When someone I know and respect tells me something sexually explicit, I'll take their word for it. I don't have to read the damn book to understand that. Also, as Christians, we shouldn't be reading this disgusting stuff, and is also part of why we don't want our minor children to have access to it. So not reading it earned an even deeper respect for the people that chose not to read it. Out of the 11 parents involved in this process, directly and indirectly, 8 of 11 were against. That's 73%. So what was my conclusion from this first book review? The process is biased. Parents will always be outnumbered, and no book will ever get removed. Fast forward to the next book, book number 2, Crank, by the Numbers. This round, 3 parents who wanted the book removed found the courage to serve on the committee. Wow, it's a miracle. Praise the Lord. 2 teachers and staff felt that the book should be restricted. Holy moly, another miracle. 2 teachers and staff felt the book was fine as is, no action needed. Then we get the recommendation of the committee. No action needed. Excuse me? What the heck? 3 is more than 2. I know some people say math is racist, but it's still 3 is greater than 2. Okay, so there's a rule. Maybe there's a rule that says it must be a vote of 4. I don't know. I'm just trying to get from A to B logically. Okay, then let's vote. Take action versus no action. Well, that shakes out to 5-2 for restricting the book, because I know if I couldn't get the book removed, I'd prefer it to be restricted over doing nothing. Again, logic. And yet, the committee recommends that no action be taken. Again, I say, what the heck? Then at the board meeting, the board votes 5-2 to affirm the committee's recommendation, even though it literally doesn't add up. Now I have a hypothetical for you. Walk with me here. What if the committee came out with the votes 3 for doing nothing, 2 for restricting, and 2 for removing?
1 minute.
And the committee recommended removing based on only 2 votes. Who thinks that 5 of the board members would be tripping over themselves, saying that the math is wrong, the committee is wrong, and we should do nothing because that's got the most votes? Yeah, me too. Again, hypocrisy. Overlook it when it suits your agenda, but when it does not, that's a whole nother story. So I assume there's an administrator overseeing this committee, and while I'm not positive who that person is, I have a hunch, and their bias is showing as well. This confirms my original conclusion that this process is biased and no book will ever get removed. Why would a parent ever serve on this committee again when what they recommend, and was a majority in, is totally freaking disregarded? The recommendation needs to be updated to reflect the actual wishes of the committee and re-presented to this board so we can see how they vote, to affirm parents and the committee or to disregard and overrule and go with their own ideological agenda. I also think the administrator overseeing it should be removed from the process and replaced with someone who can be objective as well as do basic math. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to vote
Good
opposite
evening, my name's Janine Jansma, and you have my address on file. So there's much rhetoric going around suggesting that parents want to indiscriminately ban books from the public schools, and that's simply not so. Sexually explicit books that are themselves labeled 18 and older do not belong in the libraries of junior high or high schools. Not only should that be a no-brainer, it's also a matter of following state law and regulatory statutes that do exist in Michigan. Yet, Michigan's current governances are participating in many disturbing and dishonest practices. Among them are the attempts to disenfranchise parents from being informed or from granting their consent for major life-altering medical procedures for their minor children. The lack of transparency and honest dialogue among those seeking to usurp a parent's rights is very alarming. These are real issues that need open exposure, and yet these are the conversations that actually are getting banned, censored, and shut down. Censorship is hard and heavy upon all who question the popular narrative. And the popular narrative being that which claims that what we see with our own eyes, know in our own hearts, and experience in our own lives are the lies, are not so, are dangerous, misinformations, and need to be silenced. Lies are said to be truths, truths are said to be lies, Inside out, upside down, and backwards, this is what our world has become. The insanity of our situation is on full display. Cognitive dissonance is at an all-time high as reality's distortions are presented as reality itself. Yet truth is a force of nature, and truth will be triumphant. I have so much appreciation for every courageous soul who is holding fast to truth and freedom. And I do want to acknowledge Bob, who continues to hold the line in support of the parents and thereby support of all our kids. Our children's education deserves to be one of academic excellence, an experience of a safe and friendly environment where their bodies are not subject to medical tyranny of any kind, and one where teachers or state agencies do not infringe their ideologies upon their students. Teaching children that they are just walking potential super spreaders, so they must mask their beautiful faces, is abusive. Teaching children that they don't really know if they are a boy or a girl and providing classes and tutorials on the subject is abusive. The old saying that we cannot heal what we won't reveal is now up and fully operative. The light is shining brightly, and every bit of darkness is being exposed. No stone will be left unturned. The saying, "It's always darkest before the dawn," holds fresh meaning and much promise. Our dawn is about to break. God wins. Thank you.
Next up, Michelle Thomas, followed by Brenda Montgomery. Okay, thank you for being here, Michelle. Brenda Montgomery, followed by Alan Traxler.
Hi, I'm Brenda Montgomery, and my address is on file. I was a teacher here in Grandville for 25 years and have recently retired to try other things. But I just wanted to share that Friday's football game and what happened in the parking lot there was very upsetting to me as a community member here. And I absolutely agree that meeting the school board candidates is an important part of the whole process of an election. And I agree that that needs to happen. But I'm very concerned about the way that it went about. There were two candidates that had a single table there, and from what I could see, they were passing out small cards that you could look and see what was going on for them and what they stood for, and you could meet them. And then I saw two other candidates that had a table that had multiple signs around it, but neither one of the candidates were standing there by the gate entrance. But what I did see was that there was a second spot where the other two candidates were that had a large RV that had huge signs and signs going up the driveway. I do not feel that a school is the place for this. Even though meeting the candidates is important, it was an improper place for it. So when I went and looked to research what board policy is, and if this policy has been changed, this is, from what I find on the board docs on the GPS Bulldog website, states that it is in their policy number 9700 in relations with special interests. There's a section about political relations, and it says that school facilities may not be used as a means of producing or disseminating to the community any material that advertises or promotes a political cause, or the candidacy of an individual public office. And it concerns me, and if there was something else that was brought about that changed that, that's concerning to me as well, because that's not what was on your policies on the website. And unless I am misunderstanding that policy or it has been updated at a different time, I'm concerned, Mr. Barrett, that you allowed that to happen. And Mr. Wondergem, I'm concerned because you were a board member the last time that that was revised, which was in 2012. And you should have, as a standing board member who is one of the people that is running for re-election, you should have stood up for the policy and said, this is not the place for this. And it concerns me that all of that has happened. There should be a time and place for the community to meet the potential board members, but that was not the place for it. That homecoming game was a celebration of the district. It should not have been a place for the political pageantry that happened that day. And looking at what it is that I would like to see happen is that you find a different way to have the candidates be available for a meet and greet and not at an event that is about the students and celebrating them and the district, not about promoting yourselves. And looking at your strategic plan, one of the things is, to steadfastly that respect to steadfastly adhering to the principles of honesty, reliability, accountability, and transparency. I would hope that that's something that the board members are responsible for as well as the humility of owning wrongdoings and restoring relationships with people.
1 minute.
I would hope that this is something that does not occur again, because I think that in the eyes of many community members, what happened does not put Grandville in a positive light. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our final speaker for the evening, Alan Traxler.
Hello, my name is Alan Traxler. I'm a Grandville resident, and I have 2 girls in the school system. Tonight, I just wanted to offer a brief note of support for the board. I am a kid of 2 ambulance crew members, so I was very happy to see that you are training more ambulance crew. It's how my parents met. It's how they fell in love. Their bridal party was all emergency service members. This was back in years past. So thank you for offering such a program to our students, for those that want it. I have seen over the course of all these meetings I have attended some amazing things from this school, and you're part of how that gets funded and how it happens. I've been impressed by the pilot program, and by pilot I mean pilot program. I've been impressed by the money spent. It seems like these are responsible expenditures. I'm impressed with what I see from my own kids, the education they're receiving, the things they're learning. They're excellent readers. They're learning math curriculum in a different way than I grew up learning it. They're being taught science. They're being taught history. And I like hearing what they're learning, and we talk about it at the dinner table. The school board is part of what keeps the system running. And I know there's been a lot of vitriol and naysaying, negative commentary. But I just wanted to thank each of you, because you're making sometimes some difficult decisions that are not popular. Some decisions that might affect the future of deciding to run again, how you're perceived in the public. And I think you're doing a good job. I come in here, I hear reasonable things from the board members, I hear nice reports, and I just wanted to offer you my thanks, my well wishes, and my encouragement to keep going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. The next board meeting of the Grandville Board of Education will be on Monday, October 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. here at the Administration Building. Thank you to everyone for attending tonight, for sharing your views, for being peaceful with one another. We appreciate you. Go Bulldogs.